Okay, so today we'll continue further on the streams part, on the byte stream and the different streams whichever we need to see it. And apart from that, we'll see the character streams also. So, till yesterday's, do we have any query?
No, Sneha.
Okay, let me.
One request: can you please share the code that you are like yesterday you wrote one script, right? So can
Yeah,
you share that at the end of the class, maybe through Git or maybe
sure.
through
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll upload
Node.
everything into the Git and then share it.
Yeah.
So there are two abstract classes which we are dependent for the character stream is file reader and the reader and the writer class, and we use that as the base class for all your readers and writers of the children classes. So before going to that, whatever we have observed, the streams and the character, these all comes under into the stream category, the conversion of bytes into the actual data format which we are expecting. But in case of sysout, like like we use system.out.println, right, or system.out. So these are nothing but console based data set. So we categorize these input things into a keyboard based or a console based. So in terms of console based, we go with sysout. But when your application is going live, will not use these console related statements much. It will be more of a file related based comment. So either you will store all your information in a log format, like in a text file, or in a log format where the entire details would be tracked, and you can triage the issues later on. So in this particular system.out, there are three things again. If you see this one, the print stream, this particular print stream is.
You have not shared your screen yet.
Oh, sorry. Let me show. So when it comes to the stream, it can be either an application level data, or it can be something on the console level data, or it can be something on the keyboard level data. So whatever you receive from the user on runtime through the text commands, right, on the keyboard, through keyboard, that can also be accessible in the IO handling part. So coming to the console streams, like whatever we print, like system.out.println, you see that out.println is a static, or like you can see that it's a static object. So we're not creating an object called out, it is directly called. So why so? Because it's a print stream object which is final and static. In the same way, you can observe there's an ERR, which is like error related objects. So whenever we wanted to print the error related information in our console, then we prefer to go with ERR. And there should be one more thing called in, which is an input stream. So the input stream is the similar one you have noticed, the abstract class. The same thing, the print stream would fall into the output data, and the error related things will again come into the print stream classes. So if you want to print anything related to your context in your programming, whether it's an error message or it's an input message or it's an output message, we print it in the relevant object types of that. So if it is it's an input stream. If it's an out, then it comes into the print stream class. And if it's an error, it's again from the print stream class. And from there, we can print it out. Whereas in the input stream, this particular println method is not available, whereas the println is available in your print stream classes. So you have to check the input stream class here. So all these methods, whichever we want, we can use the input related streams data set. Whereas in the output print stream, we can have our own println methods. Like println is like printing in the next line. It's again an overloaded method. All your data types will be allowed here. And same thing, you have print methods where everything will be printed in a single line and not in the next immediate lines. So we can either use the console related data set with system.out.println or in dot and then the error.println. So whenever we need to use the system.in, we have the relevant methods, this read and then available and close and mark. So we always go with the read method because that is in input which we are going to read. So it will always be thing, and this read method will always return an integer in as an written type. So we have to consume it. And now if you see, this is an unhandled exception because my particular method is not handling any exceptions. So let me create the try catch block. And every time you consume it, and you can print them in the output line. And what are we going to read? So it reads the character, whatever you get it. And based on that, we'll return the relevant element. So let me just run this program. So if you see, whenever I gave system.in.train, it was just waiting for my input. And once I have given the input, the relevant int value was printed here. And post that, the relevant error is getting printed. And if you see, the error is getting printed in a different color. And the normal output statement is printing in a different color. So this will help us to differentiate the input, output, and the error in your console screen. So this is one way of handling your data, like retrieving your data in the console format. On the application level, we can do the same thing. And on the stream level, we can do the similar one. So yesterday, we just noticed the byte array input stream and byte array output stream, which is one category under your stream classes, like input stream and output stream. So we'll see a few more classes, whichever we can use and how the data set would be and what is the difference between these two streams, because internally both read method and the write method does the same thing. So what is the one more advantage we find there is something we'll look into now. So let's try file input stream and output stream. So this again extends your abstract class input stream. And here you can see few keywords, which is called as file descriptor. So this file descriptor is like similar to the path where your file is, and the entire before in your entire path URL, the relative except the file name, the entire details like where the folder is and where the path is, those things we can describe through this particular object called file descriptor. This will have the relevant parent classes and everything. And you can even close this particular part once you're done with your operations. So for that, we always go with the file descriptor. And you have the relevant part. And there's again something called file channel. So if you see this file channel, this is like what type of operation you're going to perform on that file. So you can see like in this particular path, you have to go and open this particular file, or in this particular position, I'm going to do something, or I'm going to read this file, or I'm going to log this file, or I'm going to give the privileges, like only this particular user can access it, or this particular user can't access it. So all the operations, whichever you are going to do through a file, everything would be available in this file channel. And if you observe, this again an abstract class, and this is extended in the relevant channels, and we are just using this in our file input stream as a channel object. And these things, the object close lock, this thing will observe in the thread concept. The lock concept you'll learn in thread. Once you understand the deadlock situation and how to release the deadlock, you'll get to know more about the lock concept better and how to use that in the file input stream and output stream. So apart from that, you might see here an exception, file not found exception. So in IO handling, the major exception which we might experience whenever we start coding is file not found. The only thing is the relative part and the absolute part mapping would be different. So whenever you give one path in your local programming, say in my system when I'm working, I might have given the path as C and the relevant username and then the path, and I'll have the file. But when you're when you're trying to shift the same code into any of the server, you might not have created the path, or you might not have given the privileges to read any data from that file or write anything to that particular path. So in that case, we might end up with file not found exception. So which is like very common. And every time whenever we work on these file related programming, we have to make sure the file privileges are given, file path is very accurate, and so that these things can avoid us to end up in the file not found exception. So we can avoid most of the exceptions which we can predict easily before experiencing in the runtime environment. So now let's see how to go with the file input stream object. So what would be the structure to create your file input stream?
File input stream class. So we need to create a reference.
Yeah, we need to create a reference. Okay.
I think we need to give the path and file name.
So if you see, it is expecting 3 parameters. Either you have to give me a string, or you have to give me the file object, or a file descriptor object. So you have to give me any of these things, and it's not a default constructor. So let's see how we can give these details whenever we read a file. So let's say so I'm going to read a file in this from this path. So let me just create a text file.
Double slash is for escaping, right?
Sorry, Kirba, I missed your word.
Yeah, double slash is for escaping, right? Use
Yeah, it's escaping.
the path.
I can remove it later. So you can either pass like this, or else in the file input stream, if you give any relevant name, it will go and it internally creates as a new file object. So whatever file name you have given, the relevant name, it will go and create this particular one. And then the particular path, it will check whether it's null or not. If not, then it will find the relevant details and give you the actual path and the relevant length details. Where we use this, but we obviously use this path object, which is just a string path, which we are dependent on to identify where the file is located. So once we have defined our path, so we know how to do this. FIS is your object. Then what should I go here? So this is an input stream. So which method should I go and use now?
Read.
Yeah. So we have to use just read, and this returns always an integer. So int, let's say x equal to and I'm just gonna print it whatever I have in my file. So I'll just convert that into a character. So we'll see what it prints is. So right now, this particular file doesn't have anything in it. So let's just give a text. Yeah. Then every time once you're done with your operation, you have to perform a closed activity. So FIS is your object, then you have to do your close. So once you're done with your activity, you can close your object. So now let's execute it, and let's comment this one. Just so if you see, I'm just printing one character. So you got just hello. You got it? So if I
got it. So how to read the complete?
If you want to read the entire context, you have to initiate a loop and get the entire data. So what I can do is, instead of converting into a character,
is there any way to read it as a data frame? For example, if you have a CSV file, so
yeah, we'll do it that one also.
Yeah.
So we just started with text. So we'll do how to read the entire file, and post that we'll convert that into another CSV file and read them. But before going into a CSV file, let's experience the text file and all the file path related things. Then we'll move into CSV. Because for CSV, the reading is like little complicated because your cell, everything is maintained in a tabular column where you have to read your data from each cell. For that, we have third-party libraries like Apache POI, where you can actually pass your data in a better format. So we'll experience that. But before that, with Java-related APIs, how can we read them? Using Java APIs is something we'll address now. Okay, so now we got only one character. So what should I do to just print my entire hello? Using which loop should I start with?
For loop.
For loop, okay. And do I need to give any end condition there?
Yeah, so end of file character. Till end of file character we need to read it.
So the end of file character is, we represent that in the read method through which value? Yeah, this is the one. So -1 is like our case where we'll end the end of file. We represent that as end of file.
Okay. So what if we have -1 actually in the file?
Sorry, tell me again.
What if we have -1 actually in the file?
Yeah, only if it is -1, we'll not go into the loop itself. So that is the reason we always validate whether the file is empty or it has some content based on that.
Okay.
So what we'll do is, instead of keeping it X, I'll just make it a more relevant one. Let's say content. So now every time I have to check the content is not -1, only then I'll perform this activity and print them. So let's equal to 0. So you can either use for, or if you can go with while, because while is very simple because you don't need to give the other incremental conditions, because you're just gonna check whether your file is empty, or you can go ahead and read the entire text. That's it. So I'm just going with the while loop, and here I'm gonna say like this particular read is not equal to -1. So if it is not -1, I have some data in it. So I'm gonna go in and then print the relevant data.
Okay. So how will we how will it move to the next? For example, we have hello in the text file. So
yeah.
How will it move to the next character? Initially, it will start with H. And once it is done, how will we move to the next
Yeah, we
step?
have to increment the content every time to read the data.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do that also now. So right now we just made a check like whether it is an end of file or not. So even now you have the same output as H. So there's no change. Only
Not
thing.
assigning the content. So in while you need to assign it to content, right? FS to read.
Yeah. So if you see this time, okay, let me use print. You got your entire text. Earlier, what happened is we didn't have this condition. So what we did is whatever content you got at the first level, the first position, only that character was printed as part of your system.out.print. Whereas now what I'm doing is I'm telling is to check till -1. So this is a condition looping happening, and it loops entire text till when the end of file reaches as -1, and then it will stop, and then it will stop printing your data set. So this is one way to end up or to read the entire text file. So than for loop, I prefer you to go with while in case of file reading, because you don't need to give your incremental condition or any kind of criteria like where to initiate it. So you can just give in content equal to 0 and content is less than fis.read not equal to -1 and content plus plus. Even that is possible. But instead of giving additional conditions, it's always better to just make it more limited way by addressing the end of file. So now we have something in this file input stream available. So what this available is? So this available is like, it will tell you the number of remaining bytes which can be read from this particular input file. So whether you have any data in it, or I can just leave it whether the data is present or not. Basically, how do you check in your map whether the data is present or not? The same way you can use that particular available method to validate whether your file is not empty or present. Instead of giving this -1 condition, you can even do that. So now let me just, after this, let me use system. So if you see the file available is telling me I have something called as 10 bytes. So what this available does is the number of remaining bytes which can be read from this input stream without blocking. So it will just tell you an integer value like how many bytes I can read at that particular time. So what if I increase this text size? So if you see the available file size has been increased. So based on the content of your data, it will be completely increased. So even when if you want to know like whenever you're trying to write to your file, you want to recheck like, okay, I have this availability or not. So in that case, what you can do is even before writing it, you can every time do a check or read after reading, and if you want to perform a write operation, you can even validate the number of bytes. So how many bytes are present and my write file has that capacity or not. And to avoid those exceptions, we can use this available method to just cross check ourselves whether we have the capability to write into the file and the size is not an issue. Then you can actually use this particular available method. So any doubts in this available?
It's clear, Sneha.
Yeah, okay. So now let's use the same thing to do the write operation, and then we'll see how we can improve this performance for a file input stream. So to perform the file output stream, you are again dependent on the child class file output stream. You have to create an object. So if you see again the file output stream, like earlier in the byte array output stream, we didn't give any kind of parameter. It was a default constructor. So if you see, this was a default constructor. Only in case of your array, you were passing your input. But right now, in case of your file output stream, this is again expecting either a string or a file or any kind of information. So let's explore one. So it is expecting again a name where you're checking it, or you have to go for the other parameter, which is your file, where you have to create your own file object. So let's do that in the next type of stream, how to create a file object. Next, you can either give file descriptor, or you can go with the file boolean, like whether you wanted to add the data. So after you're writing your data in the right file, are we going to append the additional data set and then added them into it or not? And there's also one more thing called file output stream with the relevant name and the append condition. So these are the 5 overloaded constructors we have, and we can reuse whatever we want in case of our output stream class.
Okay. So now we can just give the type in the file name, right? It will automatically create.
Yeah, we can just use the same thing, file output stream part. So what I'll do is I'll just create a path, so it will be easy for me to reuse again and again. So what I'm going to do right now after FOS is I'm going to read that, write that data. So I'm going to add some more content into it. So how I'm going to use the write function. So whether I'm going to give it as a bytes or I'm going to give it as a string, that we'll see here. So how can we give it a try now? Like, is it okay for you to use append method and give it, or is it fine for you to give the data set in terms of bytes? So which one you wanted to try now?
We'll go with append. We are using the same file, right? Sample.txt.
Sorry, I didn't get it. Missed it.
Yeah, we can make use of append.
Append, okay. But the append method is not a direct thing. So for that, you have to go with your normal write method, but with the relevant offset and the length of your file details.
So for offset, we can make use of fx not available, right?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just create a string here. So we can add the entire string and then we'll convert them into the bytes itself, because all your write method, if you see, it's expecting the byte array. Either you pass your length and offset and everything, it's expecting a byte array. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using the byte array directly, I'm going to give my text. And through text, we have the get byte methods, and we can use that. And if you see this get byte method, this again an overloaded method which can accept a char set. What this char set is all about. So you would have seen the encoded methods, right? Like a UTF-8, ISO formats. There are multiple formats which we depend on when we are doing the transactions between various systems. We consider like we are all in the same framework. Okay, UTF-8, so there is no special characters issue. Otherwise, you might have an issue on converting the data from one source to another source. in one particular source, you might have it as dollar, and in the other source, it might be like a different character, like apostrophe s. So there might be issues when you read the data if your character set is not unique in both the ends, like source and destination. So for that purpose, what we do is we always provide the relevant char set. So now in our case, what we are going to do is in the get bytes, we are going to give the char set So I'm just going to give the default char set, and the input is learning IO. So I'm going to convert this particular text, and then I'm going to write it into that particular file. So after writing to a file, what should I do? Do I need to close the FOS object, or can I just end up like that?
We need to close it.
Yeah. So before doing that, let's see what is this channel is giving us. What is the data it is giving us through this object? So if you see, this particular channel is obtained from Sun. Is your previously the Oracle was before Oracle was taking care of it. It was taken care by Sun party. So the Sun is giving everything under the NIO package. So the NIO is again like the input and output package only, but internally it is giving you the file channel object. So that is the reason you get it from our Sun package. Now we need to go and check whether this learning IO handling has been written into our file. If you see now, the existing character, whatever you had, have been overridden with the data which you have passed through. So the entire data has been instructed, or you have been pushed into the new file called as sample.txt. So if you don't want to override here, you can just even append it. But right now, what we have done is we reuse the same file to write the data. We haven't the entire data which we had before, the hello Java, those things were actually deleted, and the new content has been added as part of your write object, because in your case you created it as a new object, so that this path is considered as a new file, new path. So we entire data, whatever was there, was not reset happened, no reset happened, but your data has been overridden. So in that case, what we can do is,
so if we use the same FOS to write one more sentence, you mean it won't overwrite the same thing?
So let me say FOS this, and let me say this time the text is.
Let it be the same sentence. In the output, we should see two sentences. Right?
Okay, 2 times. Okay, yeah.
Flush won't affect, right? FOS should flush. Okay.
Right. So how many times you want, you can add it. It will be just added next to next. It will not be taken care in the next line. If you want in the actual structured way, then you have to write your text in the actual format, giving all the the tab lines, next line, everything in a clear format. Only then it will be considered. So whenever you start writing, it will take care of it. If you don't want to override them, then you can avoid that override by not deleting the existing data, like just appending your data set into it. So we'll see how to append the data into your file. But before that, what does this flush? What is the main purpose of this flush? Is if you see in backend, your data will not be directly written into the file immediately. You have something intermediately called as a buffer. So it's like a temporary memory where first your entire data will be written, and post that only it will be taken care in your actual file where you have given as a path, and all the data will be written over there. So it is kind of an intermediate system. It acts as a buffer. So the offset, how we use the offset, right, to know like whether we are crossing our length of the file data or not. The same way this flash is also similar to that. It does nothing, but it basically it pushes your data one by one by just storing it on your buffer element and then posting it in the final data set. It's just like a transmitting your data set. That's it. So why do we create these flushes? Whenever you're writing a huge amount of data, when you're not using this flush, what happens is entire data is like performing an operation in the backend to write everything onto a new file. What happens sometimes, pressure would have been created, like a huge text, and it might not be ready to write entire thing within that fraction of second. If you use that flush, what happens? It will store the existing data also in that flush. So unless you complete your data set, the data will not be lost. So it will help you to maintain the data until you complete your writing part in your file. So that is always like a better option for us to go with flush when you're preferring to write a huge amount of data.
Okay.
So we'll see how to append our data set. So now you have seen this file output stream, which is an overloaded constructor. In this, there is something with string and boolean. This boolean is like you are giving a permission to append the data. So far, whatever we created was just a string. It was just accepting the path where you have your file and you're not giving the permission to append your data. But right now I'm saying like, please append my data. So now let's go create a similar set. So now instead of path, I'm going to give the append as true. And let me give this time is learning how to append data to a file. This. You see now, the data has been appended without anything, without excluding anything. You had the previous file which has this learn IO handling, which was done as part of your first object file OS, where you had the learning IO handling. But when I gave this append true, what happened? The existing data was remaining and I was able to do this. So what if I give it as false now? And let me run it again.
By default, it would be false, right?
Yeah, by default, it will be false. You see, the data has been overwritten. It is like a new file. So whenever we need to append our data set, whenever we create this object of file output stream, we have to make sure our file is having the relevant flag. So when we have that flag, we can add a data set on top of the existing file, so that we don't need to delete the existing things. It will not be like a new data. It will be like a report generation. Like every time you want, you can generate it. So this is the way we can append our data into this. So any doubts so far here?
No, fine, that's clear.
Yeah. So if you are not sure like whether what type of data set is character set is yours, you are a little confused, then you can use the relevant standard character sets, and you can see all the variety of types character set we have in our system. So if you go for Oracle, the Oracle is like UTF-8, but it's 32 bytes. Sometimes you'll have it as 64 bytes. So in that case, the difference would be like UTF-8 and 16. So by default, all the systems will support only UTF-8. But if there are few systems where you need to deal about the special like Chinese characters or the Spanish characters, in that case, you might need to go with the ISO related encoded one. So you can give the relevant char set and then transfer your data. So why do we prefer this particular cache set is right now we are dealing everything in our own console. But when you transmit from one system to another system on your network part, if your data is little manipulated, then there is no use of maintaining this file part. So that is the reason we always consider the encoding also whenever we read or write a file. So the three aspects to consider whenever you read a write is encoding is must, and also like whether it has to be a new copy every time you have to create a new file in your server, or it has to be an existing file but you have to just overridden based on your time frame. Those things can be taken care through using these flags with help of file input stream and file output stream. So this is one of the efficient way to improve your file handling compared to your byte arrays, because in the byte arrays you are passing your bytes but you're not considering about like way to create your file. Everything is in byte and it's like more of like it stores there. It is not like you're handling in the file path. But here you can have something created and saved in one particular folder and you can reuse them again and again. So that is the thing. Like most of the real-time applications in most of the IT levels, we will use this file input streams and file output streams to do any kind of read and write operations. A minimal level of thing, we prefer to go with the file input stream and file output stream. So, like, are you good till now in the file output stream and input stream?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll see the other one, other categories which we have. So far we addressed like the byte array and this. There's something called as data input stream. So what is this data input stream? It is again like we are going to read the data and write the data. Why specifically this data input stream? So if you see the structure of this data input stream, this would be little different from the previous input streams and the output streams which you have noted so far. Why is it so? Because if you see, this is implemented from the data input interface. So this is like it will read the data, but you are internally dependent upon a buffer. So here again, your buffer comes into picture directly, and not like you like if in case of file and output stream, you are saying like only if I use my flush method, I'm insisting like I need a buffer. But in case of data input stream, like it internally maintains a buffer to read your data set and everything. So if you're not sure, like I don't want to go with file output stream or input stream, you can still go with your data input and use them. And if you see the methods, this is again like the same way. The additional how to say add-on for us when we go for data input stream is you can read the relevant data type data, like not like just a read method and then later you have to convert it to the relevant primitive data types and then use those, right? So instead of not having the common read method, here you'll have a read overloaded method with those data types where you can see the ranging from the boolean till your unsigned byte. Everything, even for your encoded format data, you can read your data and everything will return the relevant data type information. So that is the reason we go for data input stream. If you're very sure, like I'm going to read only like a key value pair of information, like this will be this particular data type, this will be this particular data type, then we prefer to go with the data input streams and output streams. Else, like it's like a huge chunk of data, I'm just going to read and then transform that data to a different source or different network. Then it's always better to go with the file input stream and file output stream. So this is the major difference. And apart from that, in the data input stream, you see there's again something called as filter input stream. So this is again the actual input stream abstract class where you had so far, and all the methods which you have used so far as part of your inputs related things will be still available for us to use it. And again, this volatile, you learn about this volatile keyword in another few classes when you come to learn about thread concept. The synchronized, volatile, transient, all these keywords are really like tightly related. So you learn what is what and when to use what is the difference if you're not using a threaded environment, only if you start learning threads. So before that, I don't want to get into this particular keyword. So now let's see how to create the data set for your data input stream. So main purpose is you can read as per your data types. That is the reason we are going for the data input stream. Other than that, there's nothing more add-on things to do this. So let's say, anyway, this is in try block. So let me go here and create. So if you see again, this data output stream is expecting something called as output stream. So how did you see the earlier time, the input stream and output stream? It's expecting an abstract class of output stream object, which is nothing but the out. So as you had the print stream in your system.out.println, you have your output stream as your parameter, where you have to give this particular object to start with. So it can be any type of output stream. So this particular output stream is an abstract class. So which all classes will use this output stream? If you see a file output stream, then this particular file output stream is again like extending the output stream. And you can see the filter output stream, which is extending the output stream. Then you have what is object output stream, that is also extending the output stream. So whatever child classes, whichever it is extending the output stream, all those objects are acceptable whenever you create an object under the data output stream, because it's accepting the topmost abstract class output stream object. So you can give any kind of data set in it. So let's give the file output stream, which we learned now. So let's go here, new file output stream. And here you can give any kind of, the file output stream is again something which accepts any name. So let's go with the same file which we are using so far. So I'll just give the path. That's it. If you want to just append the data, I can just give it as true. So that whatever is appending, it will all, you can check it out here. So now, how am I going to write into it? So I'm going to go use the object. And if you see here, you can either write byte. Like earlier, whenever we are doing write operation, it is always accepting only byte. So you can't use other primitive types to use your data. But this time, it is accepting all the data sets, whichever you want. So let me say this time I'm going to give a byte value with 34. And let's say write character. String. We'll give one more data type. Boolean. And now let's run it. So let me open the file. So if you see, your data set has been printed, but it is not like very clean as what you see. If you see, everything is like D, and then here I have data, and if you see here OUT output, so data output stream, STRA stream. So the structure is little different, right? It's not like what we print usually in the text format. It's like a little different when we try to append your data. So how are we going to use this? Like how is this particular data set will help us to read the data? So let's go again. Now here, let's, instead of output, let's read the data from the data input stream.
Do we need to define any char set for this? I'm not sure why it is, the output is in different format.
So it's a text file. So data has to be in a DAT file. So what I'll do is, let me create one more file path. Okay, let me say this as sample1.dat. use this part. So if you see, you have got something called sample1.dat. So you can still see again the same character, but earlier you were having that special characters as null, null, null. But you still see it's like just having the data output stream, nothing else. So, and what are the data I have given? If you see, the write byte 34, that is not even showing. 34 is just as double quotes character. And then the 9, it's printing as a character. Next, the data output stream, you have that. And then the false, it's just a true or false, so you don't have that printed anywhere here. Now, only if you read this, you'll get to know what actually you have written as a part of your DAT files. So let's see how I can read that. So if you see now, the data input stream is again expecting an input object. So which object shall I use now? Since we are aware of file input stream, I'll go with the same thing. New file input stream. And let's give the path 1. Now let's get dis dot. If you see now, you can either read Boolean, read the character, read the double, all the data type values you can read. So let's read the, what is the first one? Read byte. If you see the byte value which we pass as 34, the character and the Boolean value, whatever you passed. So, and you're able to see the entire stream data set here. So the read line is helping you to read the entire line, the entire string. If you just want to give read, it will give you the entire string alone. So it was just giving you the int count. If you want the actual text, you can use the read line. So the main purpose of this data input stream is you don't want to read. So whenever you have this kind of template, like there might be like a structure, like you'll maintain a structure in your files. Like it will be like A, B, C. Like in case of like, for example, payment gateway system, then you will have A, B, C followed by the 4 spaces. And then you have a 4-digit number followed by spaces, and you have some special characters like $, in some space, and then you have some amount related field for 10 characters. You'll have 676767 0.90. and space, and you have the transaction happening from say HDFC space, and you're doing it to some other third party bank access, and the transaction is happening in which country, and then the rate of cost or the transaction cost, if it's like a huge value, then what is the tax you need to charge for. So let's say 0.099. So if you have some content like this in your entire template, and you're maintaining some template and just giving a random structure. So if you're having some structure like this and you want to read the data from this particular one, and each would be of one data type, it can be a double, it can be a normal string and everything. So what we do is we collect each data set and we retrieve it instead of reading it and parsing it like, okay, right now this ABC is the first 3-letter position, and this particular one is something coming after like 20th value. I'm getting the type of currency, whether it is a dollar or it's an Indian currency. I'm getting the currency indication here. And after like 15 more characters, I'll get the actual value, where the value ranges from 0 position to 10, like almost like 15 digits is for money. And whatever I have in that, I'll have this. If there is no money related information, I'll just append it with 0. So in that case, this would be the money related information. So this would be a kind of structure in any kind of templates. Then you wanted to read those data sets, and you're pretty sure this is like this data type and this is like this data type, and you know the golden copy of the entire template. Then what we can do is it would be easy for us to use this particular input streams or output streams to parse your data and then retrieve it from that file, instead of like every time you get your entire string and then apply your parsing logic, and after applying your parsing logic you're going to convert that into the expected data format. So to avoid this, what we do is we get it in directly from the format of the relevant data types. So you're able to understand, right, on the data output stream and input stream when to use?
Yeah, yes, Neema.
Yeah. So whenever we have a relevant template and it's static, like there won't be changes in future, then we prefer to go with it. So like we always make a static order, and through that order we get the relevant information and we process it. But if there is any dynamic things, then we never go for this data input stream. We always go for file input stream and file output stream.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I request you to try a sample similar to this one using one of the other streams which we have in our NIO package. Can you give a try with buffer input stream?